Wow. Thank you, Audubon. Thank you so much. And is my wife here today? I just want to make sure she saw that video. I hope she didn't hear Paul. Thank you so much for being here. Hearing Paul say those nice things about me means a lot. But mostly it means he's probably drunk too much. He's forgotten something. Or maybe he's angling for a recommendation for Secretary of the Interior to replace Salazar. Whichever, Paul, I really appreciate it. This is an incredible honor. I mean, I'm floored. And I cannot thank the Audubon Society enough. But I would like to take a minute to thank them for what they do brilliantly every day in fulfilling their mission. Please, the Audubon Society. Now, Paul's introduction in that video partly answered the question I've been asking myself ever since I was told I was to receive this award, which was, why me? There are so many great environmentalists out there who deserve this award. As you can see, I didn't turn it down. But it did leave me wondering what have been my motives, what were my path choices that led me to this place to be honored by the most distinguished environmental organization in the country. I'm not sure that I fully got the answer, but I will tell you, in times like this, in times of questioning and self-doubt, I reach for the Holy Book for answers. Now, as a Southerner, you have to realize when I say the Holy Book, of course, I mean Gone with the Wind. There's a passage in chapter 2. Scarlett's father admonishes her for her disregard of her plantation home. He says, land, it's the only thing in the world worth working for, worth fighting for, worth dying for, because it's the only thing that lasts. Kind of sums up my philosophy. I learned to love the land as a boy growing up in Raleigh. Every day on my way to school, I went down the backyard, into a forest, over a stream, through the woods, over a field, backwards and forwards. Took the return trip also. 9 years up into high school, I took this daily nature trail. And to me, being in nature is part of a daily routine. It's only natural. And from my father, who took my brothers and me on numerous boating, hunting, fishing, and camping trips, we learned outdoorsmanship and sportsmanship. My mother's side of the family, as you saw in the video, taught me about community service and how important it was to preserve those tangible physical objects in a community that give it an identity, no matter what the cost. Now, my nature education probably reached its zenith when, at the age of 16, with a newly minted driving license, I went on a cross-country trip that took about a month, and with a pal of mine, Clark Deal. So we went up into the national park system. We had Yellowstone and Glacier, Grand Tetons. We went up into Canada and Jasper and Banff. It was my first taste of the Great West, this latter-day Lewis and Clark expedition. My nature education continued in college, where I went to a rural campus, Middlebury, Vermont. And it was a continuation of a nature education, but maybe at a higher level, because I was fortunate enough to take courses on land stewardship in their environmental studies program, the first of its kind in the country. I spent a lot of time outdoors, hunting, fishing, skiing, and because I was a Southerner, falling. And I majored in American literature, channeling Ernest Hemingway. It was all great. It was idyllic. ideal until the 4 years were up and I had to figure out what the heck am I going to do, and I'd like to try to combine nature in whatever my next path was going to be. So I thought, well, maybe I should be a ski guide, or a fishing guide, or maybe a hunting guide. Or maybe I should take that literature degree and turn it into a profession as an outdoor writer for a magazine. But a couple of my friends had noted that I had a somewhat independent streak in me, and it started to make me wonder whether I would really want to report to an editor, or wait for a client skiing, or fish on somebody else's boat, or hunt on their land. So luckily, right about that time, I'd gone to Manhattan, and I met this wild and crazy guy who told a lot of tall tales. But he was kind of fun. Paul Jones. Paul was making a killing in the cotton exchange. And I dealt with him a lot, and I realized that he's not so smart. if he can do it. So I decided to move down to New York, get a job, and I wanted to make a quick fortune. And above all, get out quickly before completely surrendering to the dark side. I would gain my independence and spend the rest of my life blissfully hunting, fishing, skiing, and in style. This was the master plan. And 30 years later, standing here before you, it's all obvious that that master plan has been a total failure. As Paul has lectured, the F word. Failure because I'm still on Wall Street. But on the other hand, I will say that this failure, this F word, has allowed me some of the greatest satisfactions and successes of my life. Other than, of course, of raising 7 wonderful children, which involves another F word we won't go there. But in that failing to leave Wall Street and go back into the field, it has allowed me to forge a larger bond with nature through environmental philanthropy as well as conservation work. I have been privileged to help fund great environmental causes, join important conservation campaigns, been able to direct my own land stewardship on properties I've been fortunate enough to be able to control. And most of all, I've been able to wage my own activist campaign, something that gives me particular passion. And becoming this accidental activist, this inadvertent environmentalist, has really been the best way of honoring my family legacy and maybe that failed business master plan. Being able to participate firsthand in activist campaigns, such as Bobby Kennedy's Hudson River Keeper. Happy birthday, Bobby. 60's only one turn of the page away. And Paul Jones with his Save the Everglades campaign. These campaigns inspired me and gave me important lessons that I have brought to bear in my own campaigns. And since many of you will be called upon to be your own environmental activists, I'd like to share with you some of the common traits, some of the common threads I've witnessed in most successful campaigns. And don't worry, there are only 4 of them. So number 1, it's okay to be a NIMBY, not in our backyard. You know, Henry David Thoreau, our first great American philosopher, a very principled man, was our first NIMBY spokesman. His Walden Pond, he wrote an entire treatise about saving Walden Pond and how important it was for the individual to be able to come into nature regularly, and how important it was for a community to have nature at its beck and call. And contrary to a perverse political correctness today, it is okay for you to defend your backyard. And most NIMBY campaigns are really what I would call Niobe campaigns, not in our backyard. It's actually very hard to think of any important environmental campaign that hasn't involved a larger community's backyard. So don't be afraid to exercise your inner Thoreau, and as he put it, be not simply good, be good for something. Stand up and be counted for your rights. Lesson number 2, lead, but from behind. It may sound counterintuitive, but sometimes we are our most effective when we quietly provide support and direction to those that have the most to lose, those who have been in the local community the longest, who count on the land for their livelihood, their health, their sanity. When we went and fought developers in Clifton Key, we came in as white, foreign outsiders in a proud native Bahamian culture. And we won because of the powerful alliances we forged with community leaders who actually ended up leading the fight. Personified by a young environmentalist leader who was running for office, Perry Christie, who listened to Bobby Kennedy on radio as he was driving in his campaign. And Bobby was exhorting the Bahamians to make sure that they safeguarded this one last outlet that the public had to the water around the island of Nassau. And Perry Christie used that as his main campaign theme. And he rode the wave of public anger and declared, if I'm elected Prime Minister, that development on Clifton, if it's done, will not stand. Now, Prime Minister Christie, true to his word, as you heard on the video, has turned Clifton Heritage Park into Nassau's only national park. The developers are long gone. Thank you, Bobby. He gave me a lot of credit, but quite frankly, he sealed the deal. The third lesson any activist hero must learn is be a pest. You know, you heard about those bothersome ancestors of mine, but you know, ask King George II, they were effective. And your opponents, polluters and developers mostly, are going to try to ignore you. They're going to try to bog you down in red tape. They're going to attack your motives. They're going to impugn your character. They're going to try to outspend you, outweigh you. They will assume you're going to go away. But you won't. You won't back down. You have a lot at your disposal. It's even more now. You've got the internet, you've got Facebook, you've got the web. Use the bully pulpit of town hall meetings. Use the press. Use the editors. Use the congregations. Throw it all at them. And you may have to get in the gutter with them. That's where some of them live. And although you may want to smell like a rose on a stem, nothing gets a reaction like a thorn in the backside. Finally, lesson 4. Collaboration, it's more important than money. It doesn't necessarily take big budgets to be successful. Most of the laws you need are already on the books. They need to be illuminated, they need to be promoted, and they need to be enforced. It takes strong coalitions and great partners, especially with other environmental groups, to push for enforcement. It takes a village. Take the Audubon Society. They have a national footprint and an incredible aura. But most importantly, if you're an environmental campaign, they are also embedded in the local community through this kind of branch network that David was referring to. It gives them the authenticity that makes them so powerful. I want to thank them for our partnership in various campaigns. I look forward to campaigns in the future with Audubon. And I want to thank them as well for this great medal again. And I wish to thank all of you for coming and sharing this moment with me. In return, I've shared some of the ideas of how perhaps I got to this stage, but more importantly, I've shared some of the ideas you may need when you're called upon as an accidental activist to mount a campaign of your own, an environmental campaign. And if you win, you'll be an environmental hero. And if you win enough of them, well, maybe there's a reward waiting for you. So, be an envy, lead from behind, be a pest, and collaborate. Protecting open space in perpetuity is a great privilege I have been lucky to be a part of. A privilege like no other philanthropic endeavor I can think of. Because in common with other worthy causes, the joy one receives in making a difference for others, the purpose one feels of being on mission, land preservation can be done permanently, such that land endures forever in its natural state, and is not just something merely achieved today and that soon will be gone with the wind. Now, sticking with that holy book, I'd like to close by paraphrasing my southern cousin, Red Butler, about getting involved in environmental causes. Frankly, my dear, you should give a damn.